No.
Yeah, so I can finally sync my Fitbit without using the iPad.
Okay, right. Everything's. Let me send the link out.
It's funny after we talked last week about Xbox Music maybe being on the way out, and then
I know, yeah.
and then along comes Joe
I can
Belfiore.
hear you now.
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, good for a second.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Coming through loud and clear.
Excellent. That's good. I can hear you.
I was just trying to persuade Ian to buy a Lumia 2520.
Well, rather cheap. Actually, not.
Yeah.
Is it still cheap today? Is it last day today? It's only a few days, isn't it?
I'll start the recorder off. We can discuss that. Right. I think we're all ready. I've sent the link out. So, Jason, Gary, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I made it.
Yeah, yes. I finally made it as well.
For a while, I thought I was going to have to do the piano music to go along with Gary's silent video.
Yeah, I was working out if I could mime. I could just do sort of big things, and not that anybody else would be able to see me other than here. No,
that's true. Yeah. Diddle diddle diddle. Right. So, well, good evening. Welcome to the show. Welcome to anybody in the chat room. And we've got quite a lot to talk about. And just before we started recording, Jason was just reminding me of a few things we talked about last week that have been in the news already.
Yeah, I think Joe Belfiore finally realised that the storm that was brewing and decided to chip in on Twitter and say, "Don't worry, Xbox Music and Xbox Video isn't going anywhere."
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with that then. There was a few stories that came from it was the Microsoft announcement, quarterly earnings or something like that, wasn't it, last week after we recorded?
Yeah, and Satya mentioned the fact that they were looking that Xbox Music and Video was going to be streamlined, which doesn't quite have positive connotations.
And as we in fact, as you said before, one of the questions that Gary posed, I think it was anyway from last week, was do Microsoft really need it? I think that was your words, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what I think a lot of people are wondering now.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the one thing I was thinking this week, because obviously I'm currently for another 2 days an Xbox Music subscriber. If Microsoft did decide to drop out of the music and maybe the video, my take is that they can never re-enter that market if they do drop out of it, because when you think about it, we've had Plays for Sure, that got shut down. We've had MSN Music, that eventually got closed down with a notice saying you need to download any music now. Zune Music Marketplace got closed down, and with a notice you need to download any music that you purchase now. If they did the same with Xbox Music, I just don't think anyone would ever trust them again in terms of parting with cash to buy music and videos. I mean, I was really nervous. I tend to buy our music through Amazon, but I have started buying videos on Xbox Video just because it works with everything that I want to use. But if they'd dropped out of that market, I think I'd be pretty annoyed. But like I said, I did think with the Xbox Music that if they do drop out, I think that's a line in the sand, I think.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, I know I was questioning things. So it's more from the point of view of looking at it from a Microsoft perspective rather than from an end user's perspective.
Yes.
In lots of ways, I think it's actually good that they've got a service. But in other ways, if they didn't have a service, would that force them to try and adopt other services more? Maybe work closer with Amazon, work closer with other people to get music.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree with you, Gary. Do they really need that service? Particularly, I've said it before. There are some elements of the service that work really, really well, and then there are other elements that other people just do it so much better. And I really hoped by this point. I mean, what Windows 8 and Windows Phone is getting relatively, they're no longer new products, and I really thought that service, particularly with the amount of storage space available on OneDrive, that they would have things like being able to sync and match music to OneDrive. It just, this integration and the whole filling out of the product just seems to be taking too long, which contradicts where Microsoft is currently doing and actually turning around things really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it may change. I mean, streamlining could mean that. It depends how you read it, of course.
Yes.
It's streamlining the process to get the updates to them, maybe. And having said that, there was a really big update to the 8.1 video app, which came out the last couple of days. So, which is good. It seems to wonderful, and it's the best thing they've done. Other people really don't like the layout, but they basically brought it to the music look and feel. So the video app now looks very similar to the music app, and it does tend to show that there's still things coming down the pipeline on that.
My thoughts are, though, it's really they can't. I don't think they can afford to get rid of it because Google don't support Windows Phone. Amazon really don't have very good support either. So if you were to pick up a device and you wanted to get music streaming services and video streaming services without Microsoft's own service, you're pretty limited on your choices. In fact, you really there isn't a choice. I don't know. Is there a Spotify app for Windows Phone? I think there is.
There's actually quite a good Spotify app for this phone. Of course,
Windows
Mixed Radio.
8,
No, not for Windows 8. You have got Mixed Radio.
Which
now.
which they're on about getting rid of.
Yeah, we're talking about getting rid of, and you could have seen them integrate that into replace Xbox Music with Mixed Radio. Would have been, or integrate the two would have been quite an interesting concept. But I think there's a bit of not invented here with that.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think Xbox Video, well, also actually Xbox Music as well. I haven't seen any other third-party apps that offer the ability to download, like Blinkbox. I know we talked about this before. Blinkbox doesn't have an offline capability. There's the Flixster app, which isn't available in the UK, but I was chatting to somebody on Twitter, and they were talking about the US version supports Ultraviolet, which is fantastic. No idea why there's no support for that in the UK, because Ultraviolet is over here and is practically on every DVD now. But they were saying, that Flixster doesn't support downloading to watch offline. Which is fine if you've got, a full Windows x86 device. You just install the desktop version. But for people like me and Ian with Surface 2s and Lumia 2520s, the offline capability is quite crucial, and that's kind of in some ways why I've actually ended up, going with Xbox Video, just because I can download and watch offline.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense.
I just wonder why other third parties haven't done it. Is it that Microsoft have got, more open access to maybe hidden APIs, or is it just that it's too much work?
You can download files, but it is a lot of work in the 8 app. I think it's more a licensing thing. I think a lot of these people haven't licensed for downloads. They've licensed for streaming, but not for downloads. I think that's the case with Spotify.
Yeah, but for example, like the Flixster app, which ironically is available in the UK on the iPad, that supports download and offline.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. That's true enough.
And so does the Blinkbox app on iPad.
Yeah, that does tend to make you question things, doesn't it? Yeah. I was thinking more from the music point of view, but you're right. On the video side of things, there are legal licensed copies for download, so that shouldn't be an issue.
It's the usual story, though, isn't it? It tends to be that the Windows Phone platform gets the app after it's been on the other platforms and without all the features.
Yeah. Although the one area that is changing is games. I mean, Gameloft have released a number of games this week that have come out in synchronization with other platforms. So, ironically, the gaming market seems to be ahead of everything else.
Yeah, but that's because it's so easy now to port most games which are written. Most people are using the same types of things for developing for games, and you haven't got the platform differences. I mean, it's one of the few things where there is a true cross-platform development tools now.
Right.
It's called across all platforms. It's only sort of surrounding stuff you have to write. Whereas everything else, most of the developers who write apps which are non-games are iOS or Apple Android developers. We've discussed this before. The teams which build those apps are made up of people who are fairly anti-Microsoft most of the time, and they don't tend to bring Microsoft developers in to do the things, and there's almost a bias against actually developing apps. You can see the difference where an app is developed from phone and then developed for all the other platforms. It tends to be platform complete on all the platforms. And it's easier to do that obviously with things like Xamarin around that. But yeah, I think that there's a challenge in the outlook of people who tend to write for Apple platforms and Android platforms. Getting less so, but still there.
Well, and like I was going to mention the review that of the 1520, I'll come back to that. But one of the things that I sort of said there is if the app that you want is there, then really there's no problem with Windows Phone. The apps are of good quality. It's just quite often that the one that you need isn't quite there or isn't totally finished. But that's what. But so going back to the original sort of conversation, I personally don't think Microsoft could get rid of the Xbox Video and Xbox Music libraries without hurting the platform, unless they somehow manage to get content deals with other people all lined up. But then it goes back to your point there about credibility. Then that's a separate issue.
Yeah.
So I think it would be a dangerous thing to get rid of it. And I know it's not their core business, and Microsoft seem to be focusing a little bit more on their core business and dropping some other things. But I think from a consumer point, it is a core service.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and also I think I've been listening to quite a bit of criticism about Microsoft getting messages across, but I think there's been a couple of examples where previously they would have just remained calm and let the storm go on around them, whereas with closing down the Nokia X brand, I think was a really clear decision, and announcing really quickly that look, we seem to have messed up the message, but no, Xbox Video and Xbox Music isn't going anywhere. Don't worry, it's around to stay. I think it's good to hear them doing that for a change.
Yeah, I think personally they should give away make some of it free as much as you can. That they can with the content deals, and really make it a big selling point, because that would make a big difference to someone, especially say to kids who are picking up the cheap phones and it's got a free 6 months or a year music subscription. Then that's a big deal for them.
Yeah, like Skype.
Yeah, exactly. Because going back to my kids, they're on a pay-as-you-go phone. They're not going to pay £6 or £7 or £10 a month for music service contracts, but they would. If one came with it for 6 months or a year, they'd be very happy. And even if it had a limited service, they would be happy to have something there, and that the other platforms don't provide.
I mean, there is the 10 hours, isn't there, of free streaming on Xbox Music, which I think is free. But I mean, I would like to see some kind of minimal service like the Nokia Mix Radio does. For £3 a month, you can't choose what you listen to, but you can listen to playlists, and something bundled in with the Xbox Live subscription like that. You can't pick and choose the music you listen to, but you can just stick on a radio station and maybe actually curated or just computer generated playlists. I think that would be quite good, and maybe that kind of goes against one of the things that Satya said is that they're now trying to get Xbox refocused on gaming, and maybe that would go against that. But I still do feel that while the necessity for Xbox Live has been gotten rid of, it would still be nice to see a few extra perks, a bit like Amazon Prime. You pay for Amazon Prime, you get free delivery, and now you get the video service. So I think that would be an interesting offering just to get people interested.
Yeah,
radio deal, don't they, with the lower end phones at the moment? So, which always strike me as slightly odd that they prefer to give you away Mixed Radio than they would do Xbox Music.
Yeah, I mean, Mixed Radio on a new Nokia is really prominent. I mean, it's just there on the home screen, as it is on the Lumia 2520.
Yeah, but funny you mentioned the 2520.
You buying one, Ian?
So now I'll check to see whether this is still the case. But John Lewis, the stores here in the UK, they do a lot of technology, and as I think we've all got devices from there. But they are doing the 2520 for £249, which I think is a pretty good price, really. It's a couple hundred quid off. I think it's £200 off, isn't it?
150 off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got mine when it was in the sale. I think it was only £100 then. I think. So yeah, it's. I mean, I think it also might be quite an exclusive to John Lewis. I know you can sometimes get it through mobile phone contracts, but obviously with the LTE built in. But I think John Lewis is one of the few places you can actually get it. Well, certainly originally it was one of the few places.
Yeah, I did have a look on Amazon to see if they dropped the price, but it was £400 on Amazon.
Yeah, I mean £250 for a good quality 10.1 inch, quad core, 32 gig storage, with LTE, as I say, that's built in, which I've started using more and more. I kind of find it hard to go back to the Surface 2 now without having the LTE option. I mean that's just a real bargain. You can't. I don't think you can get a really good high-end 10-inch tablet for that kind of money.
Yeah, I think actually, it's a good point that with the LTE, there aren't that even. If you went for an Android tablet, you'd be probably hard pressed to get $249 on an Android tablet, 10-inch and LTE.
I mean, it's certainly way cheaper than the iPad.
Yeah, and it's cheaper than the Surface 2 with LTE.
Yes, but that's over. I still think that's really overpriced.
Haven't dropped the keyboards yet, price yet, though. So you almost pay as much for the keyboard as you are for the device now.
Well, they did have that on offer for a while for £100.
Yeah.
But the keyboard is $150, isn't it?
Yeah, but so they were selling it for $100 at one point.
Yeah, so you're still going to be paying. You've still got the $150, and if you get a Surface, although I don't think you get a keyboard with a Surface 2, do you?
No, you don't. No.
So I think the keyboard for the Surface is just over £100, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I can see the point with the Nokia one with the power back that they could charge a bit more for it, but I still struggle to see how anybody can. It's how you bundle the pricing, I guess, to some extent. But,
yeah,
it definitely strikes as slightly a rip-off.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I mean, to say, yes, it does include the battery, but I think £100 would be a better price. But I wouldn't be without the keyboard now, just for that extra battery boost.
I think, I definitely think that one's probably got more justification than being priced well. I still don't think it's got. Keyboards. I mean, Surface keyboards should be around about the 40-50 quid mark maximum.
Now, what do you reckon the motivation is for this then? Is are they getting rid of the stock? Is it an end of line sale?
Actually, it must be getting close to end of line. Nokia products don't tend to stay out of the market more than the, especially Microsoft around the place. So yeah, there were rumours of a replacement for it coming shortly as well. So
yeah, and does this come from Microsoft saying, okay, get rid of these? That's the end of the road for the Lumia tablet line.
I'm not sure about that. I think there might well be actually another Lumia tablet coming soon. And of course, we've also had the other news this week where they've been talking about the Nest.
Oh, we lost you there, Gary.
Am I back?
I think maybe you should drop your video because your bandwidth's disappearing.
Okay, let's kill the video.
We'll have to. Got replaced by a picture of you with sunglasses on.
Oh, that's better. Is the voice better now anyway?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
Good. I don't know what's happened to the bandwidth tonight. It's something to do with. So I'm getting interference on my Wi-Fi in the house tonight from somewhere. So I'm quite foul. Anyway, as I was saying, there's the next update to Windows Phone, and they're talking about supporting Ian Dixon-sized phones. I'm sure it's actually the Ian Dixon mode they've put. Where they're talking, was it 7-inch?
Yeah, I mean,
which is almost tablet size, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can call that a phablet anymore, can you?
No. So I think that. Request, so it sounds like there will be 7-inch phones out there, which is cool. I quite like the idea of Windows Phone tablet.
I mean, that's good. That's interesting because they announced a build in support for 7-inch Windows tablets, so you can have 7-inch Windows tablets, 7-inch phones. It's again a bit get confusing.
Yeah.
I do wonder if this is all part of the slow transition to get, Windows Phone OS as the replacement for Windows RT, that they're slowly kind of ramping up the pixel density and the screen sizes.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. I'd like to see a 7-inch phone. That'd be all right. Make this 6-inch Lumia is a bit on the small side, so 7-inch would be quite good. I would be struggling to fit that in my pocket. Although I have managed to fit the Nexus 7 in a couple of times, but it's getting a bit that's getting a bit ridiculous. Did you see the other thing as well? They mentioned talked about with the Windows Phone. It's up to Windows Phone 8.1 update 1, isn't it? That's adding the support.
Yeah.
There was the interactive covers.
Yeah, which is obviously aimed at HTC and LG, isn't it, with their interactive covers? Because that's the other rumor this week, that there's going to be a Windows version of the HTC One. And obviously that's got that cover option which sort of lights up the Pixel cover, I think where it's got sort of a cover you can actually have text on all the time. But I guess it's a bit like the Glance stuff on.
Yeah.
Actually quite interested in the idea of an HTC One M8 for Windows. I mean, that'd be a really good form factor for Windows. Although it won't be a Lumia, of course, so it might not have some of the Nokia bits, but could be good.
And some of the interactive care, I mean, just a simple thing that I have noticed is on the Nexus 5, which I've got the case that fits on it, the Nexus 5 case. When you shut the case, it turns the phone off.
Yeah.
And the Lumia doesn't do that, and I keep leaving the Lumia on and draining the battery. So, I close the lid and expect it to switch off, and of course it doesn't. It times out eventually. And if you've got something like one of the mapping apps open, which actually stays on, it'll stay on forever. So it's just caught me out a few times actually. So I know it's just a simple little thing, but I would like to see it. Perhaps if I haven't got used to it on the Nexus, I wouldn't miss it. But I have got used to that, and I'd like to see that.
Yeah, and they're saying that's the sort of thing it will support an option, and you'll be able to control optionally what actually happens when the cover's shut. So if you do want your maps to stay alive and running,
yeah.
But if you don't, you can turn it off and switch it off. So I think that's a good idea, to be honest.
Yeah. And I think the other thing on there was app folders, wasn't it? Interactive app folders, which is basically the iOS, Android style folders.
Yeah, they got, and we've already known that was coming. There were a few other things in there which were quite interesting. The voice over LTE stuff, which is more prevalent in the States, which is like a VoIP thing, but on 4G. Which is quite clever. A few other things. The one which really got me, got me excited, I should say, is aptX support on Bluetooth. So the high-end audio codec.
Right. So for audio devices, stereo speakers.
Yeah. So if you've got a reasonably high-end audio speakers, or something like the Dragon Lily speakers I reviewed not so long ago with the aptX support, they sound much better when you actually play aptX through them. So aptX is basically a way of doing Bluetooth compression, which is lossless, and it's basically CD quality over the air. So it's usually I find that if you've got a certain device that supports aptX and you plug a cable into it and play the music, you can't tell the difference between plugging the cable in and using the Bluetooth. And it's really good. Some of the new features in Bluetooth LE, so you're going to be able to have a lot more connective stuff sitting there and things. And it just seems like they seem to brought. The other thing is they've actually got the standards they use for connection between devices and Bluetooth. They are AVRCCP and the one for phone book connections up to the standard which iPhones had for some time.
Right.
So a lot of the cards which rely on that will actually suddenly start working properly with Windows Phone, which should be good.
Yeah, the one thing I've seen this week, which with the Bluetooth low energy support in Windows 8.1, is the Fitbit app. Finally, the official app's out. So I was actually able to synchronize my Fitbit bracelet with my Windows Phone, which is great. It means I don't have to use my wife's iPad anymore, which is always a bonus. And we talk about apps that are important to us. And although bizarrely enough, and I guess it's maybe a platform thing, but there is an official Fitbit app for Windows 8, but that doesn't support synchronization.
But the Windows Phone one does.
It does now, yeah.
Yeah.
Not with the Windows Phone 8.1 developer preview that disables Bluetooth LE, but yeah, on my Lumia 930 it does support that because it's now running the official Cyan update.
And actually, I was going to mention that the Cyan update is starting to make its way out now.
Yeah, it seems to be slowly gathering momentum.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, you look at the Nokia update page, it does seem to be in testing.
Yeah, I think the 1320 has started to see it, and the 1520 for the UK country variant is there. Although I think mine is an import, so mine's not ready yet. But if you want to, if it's available, it won't show up, will it, at the moment if you're running the developer preview?
Yeah, they've still got the update on hold because of this encryption conflict, BitLocker.
Yeah.
So I know I'm trying to remember his name now, but Winobs on Twitter, he actually rolled his back using the Nokia recovery tool to actually update in the state. So yeah, I think at the moment, I mean, it will come. It seems to be quite a bit of people kicking off saying, "Oh, this isn't unfair." You know, we were told there wouldn't be any issues with installing the developer update. Well, you know, you have to accept there is some risks, and Microsoft haven't turned around and said you'll never get the update. They're just, you know, they need to fix that bug, and then I'm sure it'll start rolling out.
Yeah, that's right. I think I looked at whether to wipe mine, but I think my variant isn't ready yet, so I thought I might as well wait. And I guess even when it is out, if you wait, you'll just get it, won't you, when they fix that problem anyway.
Yeah, if they do fix that problem.
Yeah. So really, and what are you missing out then by not getting the finished version?
It's mostly the drivers updates, you know, the specific hardware drivers that aren't included in the developer preview. Also some support for kind of the Nokia specific apps might not be there within the developer preview. And as I say, with Bluetooth LE is actually disabled in the developer preview because, again, probably the specific hardware drivers aren't in that package.
Yeah, which is quite an impact in some ways because obviously you've got an app you can't use. But there's other things as well which use LE, which would be nice to see that actually in there.
But I mean, you know, and it's the world we live in. You know, Windows Phone updates do roll out really slowly, and unfortunately in this case, you know, there is a bug that has been picked up. And you know, what would you rather? You know, it was making phones inoperable that have to be recovered. So Microsoft could continue to roll it out. I don't think that's really an option. Or if you did install it, it means you have to recover your phone. So why not just recover your phone and then
get
the final release? And I have to say, you know, just as we talk about with Windows 8.1, you know, switching to the Lumia 930, it was pretty much seamless. You know, all the apps installed. It remembered my start screen layout. The only slight inconvenience was having to log back into certain applications and the fact that, you know, which I guess is quite a big deal for some, that, you know, game progress is lost, and that's kind of one of the biggest frustrations for me. Whenever you update a device or switch devices, you've lost all your game progress. And there's games that I've purchased through, you know, independent developers that I really enjoy, but would I really go through the first 10 levels again? Probably not.
Yeah, that is a problem, I think. And something which could be fixed. I mean, development-wise, you can roam your settings, so there's no reason why people shouldn't roam the settings.
Yeah, I mean, I really love Hill Climb Racing, and I've supported the developer buying the application. I've even supported the developer buying some add-on packs, you know, through the freemium model, and you know, and I don't mind doing that because it's always having updates, and the developers, you know, obviously put a lot of care and attention in it, but I'm probably unlikely now to play it again. In which case, if I'd been able to continue, there would have probably been a point where I might have bought another add-on pack. Whereas now, if I'm not playing the game, then, you know, that option's lost. So it is a shame that developers aren't supporting that. And, you know, it's the 21st century at the end of the day.
Yeah. I don't know about game development, but from the standard Windows development, it's really easy. My Flickr app, I store the credentials in the roaming profile, and it's the same as storing it in the local profile. It's just a different API that you call. The code itself is identical.
Yeah, I haven't tried Unity to see if it supports roaming settings quite so easily, because that's what most games developers are using these days. But I'll actually ask the question tomorrow at the Windows Phone User Group, because I know a couple of Unity developers there, and see what they say.
Yeah, and I managed to get round after recording last week's show. I managed to post in the review of the 1520. So I must say I really like that phone. I had some fun with it. We went out at the weekend and I've got some good pictures. The Nokia camera is really good, and some of the if you take it with the burst mode, the motion shot mode, it gives you some good options and like blurs out things and removes people, and there's all sorts of things you can do with it. And it's pretty fun actually. So I really like that, and I really do. Jason, I did give you credit as well. So it does make a difference. The Nokia software does make a difference.
It does, yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, that's the one thing which makes me hesitate about the new HTC One.
Yeah.
Because I do like the idea of the HTC One Mate for Win. What a weird name that is, though. So they're not going to actually change the name of it at all. Apparently, they're going to still call it HTC One M8. And they're just going to add 4 windows on the end of it. So if you want the Android version of it, you have the HTC One M8, and if you don't, you have to. That's going to confuse a lot of shoppers.
It is, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I did really like the phone when I was out taking pictures and all that stuff, and it's great for got a nice screen on there and good pictures, and you can post them straight away. And yeah, I really like it. So I think it's a really good phone, and like I said in the review, really, it's only a couple of things it's really missing. The Google Music app, the cloud music app that I use, it's okay, but it's not a patch on the Google Music app, and it just so wish that Google would just do a proper music app, do a proper Maps app, and just then support it properly, and then I'd be really that would be my ideal device. But they're probably never going to do that.
No, I mean maybe when the market share, if it does come, maybe that will be enough to tip them over the edge. At the end of the day, if it's lost revenue, they might be interested. But yeah, it's.
Sorry, Jason. I did hear someone who wanted to remain nameless and not mention that they worked for a particular company say that there was a 20% market share figure, which was being sort of bandied around internally.
I think that that does make sense at the end of the day. I mean, if you can beat down the underdog, then that's what you're going to try and do. You would prefer people with that kind of market share. You prefer people to buy an Android device as opposed to buy a Windows Phone device. But we actually, it was my son's 10th birthday at the weekend, so he's now crossed that threshold where we've allowed him to have a mobile phone. So we got him a Lumia 630. I looked at the 635, but it was really just the LTE that was the difference. But so far, he absolutely loves it compared to considering he's come from his iPod. He's really enjoying it. I have to say, it's a really nice device. It's really light. I think the only issue he's really come across so far is he really wanted to download FIFA 14, but it's not optimized for the 512 megabyte devices. But it's certainly nice and light, and the screen's really, really clear. I mean, it doesn't support the 3 columns of tiles, but for him, it's absolutely great.
Yeah, my son's got the 635. Yeah, really likes it. The only thing I think it's missing really is the front-facing camera.
Yes, yeah, and also the camera button. There isn't a dedicated camera button. Although with Windows Phone 8.1, which it runs, you only have to slide down from the top to bring down the activity center, and you can add the camera as a shortcut button. So. And to be honest, he's probably not likely to use it as a camera all that much. He's more interested in using it as a gaming device and texting all his mates.
Although, because my other son's got the 625, so they're arguing over which is the best phone, and the one with the 635 saying, well, he prefers the soft buttons because you don't catch them accidentally as you do on the 25. So they're arguing over who's got the best one.
And the one thing actually, with the 630 and the 930, it's got the new sensor core technology, so it can basically measure footsteps and things like that. So I've actually turned that on, and actually it's really quite close to my Fitbit. The main difference is the fact that I don't, I tend to keep my phone in my pocket if I'm away from my desk, but when I'm walking around the house, it just stays probably on the wireless charger. So that seems to be the main difference. It actually seems to be quite accurate in measuring footsteps.
Yeah, I've certainly heard a lot of people say that. What puzzled me in terms of a marketing thing is the fact that they're bundling the Fitbit with the 635 in the States. Which it seems to be quite an odd approach when you've got sensor core in the 635.
Yeah.
And one other thing as well to mention as well is there seems to be an issue with cases the 630 and 635, I thought they were identical hardware, in case, but we ordered a case that said off Amazon for albeit it was £3 or whatever, but for 635, 630, and it didn't fit. The 635 wouldn't fit in. And when we were in the store, someone had a 630 one, and we said, "Can we try it?" And that didn't fit either. So, but when you look on Amazon, they're all listed 630/635, so it was a bit strange, really. And we went into a few of the O2 and Carphone Warehouse and whatever to get to see if they had the Nokia case, and they didn't have a Nokia case either. So you can only get the third-party one. So we've had another go. We've got another one off Amazon that's coming, so we'll see if that one fits.
It does seem a bit odd.
Yeah. One thing I did get arrive in the post today was my free Lumia 930 pack. So I've got the wireless charger, which can charge wirelessly and wirelessly charge.
Yeah, that's quite good.
The speaker, the Bluetooth speaker, which is orange, so that matches my son's phone. So I think he's probably going to take ownership of that. And also the what's it called? The Nokia tag, which is a little Bluetooth low energy tag that you can put on things so that when they move out a distance, you get an alert. And I think the other part of the pack was, trying to remember, the £20 app voucher.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, so that right. I mean, that's pretty quick considering I only got the phone on the 17th, and I think I applied on the 18th. So that's not a bad turnaround.
Yeah, and since that was something we talked about quite length last week. And there's now been sort of almost a retraction on that, saying, oh, well, we will make the packages available a bit longer, and there's a bit more stock, and you've got more chance of getting one. So hopefully people will get them.
Yeah, that'd be good. I mean, it's like I said, it's certainly a useful little pack. The only thing I find odd is that the Nokia tag, one of the main suggested use is put it on your keyring. But when I get to work, I tend to check my car keys in my drawer, and then that's it. So every time I went off to a meeting, I'd be getting an alert saying, "You lost your car keys."
Yeah.
I do quite fancy putting it on my tagging it on my kids though, so if they wander off.
So you put it on the most important things. Put it on your 2520.
Yeah.
Never mind about the kids.
I see it more as having it in my pocket, clipped to me. So that if I leave my phone behind, it beeps.
Or is that if you get lost?
If I get lost. That happens a lot. Trying to find myself.
Yeah, the carers come out and they can locate you.
Yeah, actually, I'm working on something very similar to that at the moment with the iBeacon technology, and I'm waiting for the updates to the low energy stuff on the Nokias to see if I can actually talk to them as well. Which would be quite cool. But that's sort of like beacons scattered around the house to see where somebody is and see if they're spending too much time in one place, and alerting carers, literally. So so that's quite an interesting technology. And
speaking of Windows Phone as well, just a poster I put up today is how you can use Google Maps on Windows Phone.
Yeah, that's a good little app by the looks of things.
Yeah, now the reason why, because you might think, well, why bother? Because here Maps, is on Lumia's and Windows Maps. The normal maps that comes with Windows Phone are pretty good, but I found the traffic. It's mainly the traffic information, to be honest. The traffic information is more accurate on the down to street level. So, and I tend to use this when I'm going home in the evening, because depending on how the traffic looks, I can go in the different routes. Whereas on here Maps, it tends to show you the motorways and the main A roads. On the Google Maps, you get more street level, and this app supports that. Plus, it also supports Street View as well. But it uses the here maps or the downloaded maps as well. So rather than relying totally on your data connection to download maps all the time from Google Maps, it'll use whatever you've downloaded as your maps, and then just put the sort of the Google layer on top of it, which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah, I've used the Gmaps application. It's definitely a good app, and I think there's also a Windows 8 version as well.
Oh, is there? Right, I'll have to check.
Yes, yeah, there's a Windows 8 version.
Well, I thought it was a handy little app, and it just shows if there must be some interest out there, despite what Google think, because some developers have gone to the trouble of doing it, and it seems to have quite a lot of downloads.
Yes.
There was another thing that. While we're on the Windows Phone, before I leave Windows Phone, did you get the live lock screen beta?
Yes. Which managed to lock my phone up completely and had to reset it. But it does seem to only be on certain phones, so that's a problem. The performance seems to be better on others. I mean, at the moment it's just an app, isn't it? And yeah, it's got some nice bits on it. What I'm more interested in is the fact that this actually has SDK possibilities, and there's already talking about this live weather app. They've said we should run lock screen. So I wish one of the Indian sites was demoing today. So I think that it has potential, but for me at the moment it was try it once and then get rid of it.
Yeah,
because it was affecting performance too much.
Yeah, that was the main thing that put me off trying it, was the fact I used the Weatherflow app, and that's my lock screen with the weather, so I didn't want to lose that functionality, so I actually steered clear of it. And then as some of the reports of bugs and whatnot came in, I thought, yeah, I'm quite glad I kept away from that one.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is visually nice, and it's nice to have a bit of variety. And I see that the OEMs are going to have the ability to do that built into their side of things as well, so you might get some specific OEM type startup.
Actually, that was one of the things I think we missed actually when we talked about the Windows Phone update one. One of the darker sides of the update seems to be that carriers will have the opportunity to remove the manual check for updates.
Oh.
Which I think is, on the one hand you can see the reason for that, because if carriers aren't releasing the updates, the last thing you want is someone to keep checking and keep getting told your phone's up to date when actually clearly it isn't. So I can kind of see that, since it will check in the background anyway, but even so, I just it's yet more control given over to the carriers.
Yep.
They should pin the Nokia update page as a live tile.
there is an app to do that.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, there is an app that scrapes. Yeah, it's a very good app. Yeah, you can have a live tile in it. You tell it what phone you are and whether or not it's a carrier locked one, and literally all it does is just scrapes the Nokia page. But yeah, it's a really clever little app.
Yeah, well, they should bundle that with them all.
Yes.
Or put it on the Windows Update page, because if they got the site and they got the data, why not say your next update is due
yes
soon, or is it impending?
He's waiting for your yeah, that's a good idea. What else could we go back on to the Microsoft earnings call. Did you notice a little snippet that someone pulled out, and it was posted in various places, that they took a charge on the Surface hardware, including a charge for not releasing a Surface device a few months ago. So they didn't specify what, but we're pretty sure it's Surface Mini.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a Mini, because it did talk about another form factor of Surface device. So yeah, that's got to be the Mini.
I just want to make friends with someone that works in that warehouse.
yeah, there was rumors they'd produced something like a couple of thousand of them before they pulled the plug. So
the warehouse is full of those, and it's got a lot of Zunes in there, a lot of Kins in there, a big pile of couriers.
Yeah,
a lot of place for sure stuff,
and sitting right next to the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, one day someone there with the whip and the hat will be
Indiana Jones and the quest for the Surface Mini.
Yeah. I'd watch that. So it's interesting that they sort of acknowledge that, but there was a couple of rumours. I think these are only rumours that there's another Surface device due, isn't there? But I think there's no really further information on that. October as well, I think the time frame.
Yeah. So there's fairly strong rumours. I'm getting some quite strong rumours that it's going to be another 10-inch Surface RT, which is interesting. So a thinner, lighter device, basically.
It's going to be interesting because, while the actual design of the Surface devices is really nice, there's got to come a point where they need, things move on, and they're going to have to release something that looks different. It's the next iteration of the design.
Well, someone pointed out Twitter when they said it was a thinner, lighter device. They said, "How can you get it much thinner and still attach the keyboard?" Which is a fair point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly how that's impacted the design of the Nokia Lumia 2520 keyboard, and the fact that it's so thin at the edges that it can't possibly attach a keyboard in that way.
Yeah, I think. Well, for me, the Surface 2 is doing the job that you want it to do great, and I don't really feel the need to upgrade it. But yeah, things move on. They've got to have you've got to refresh it, otherwise you get stale. So they could update the processor and maybe add a bit more RAM or improve the screen, so reduce the bezel size, or things like that. So I guess that's the way that they can go. But it's kind of feel like a little bit in limbo though until we get the next version of Windows.
Yeah, although having said that, backtracking slightly, the look of the iPad hasn't changed all that much. So I guess there's no reason. Certainly, I would like to see them continue the Lumia tablet line as well. Because that gives you a choice. Then you've got an industrial design, and then you've got a more traditional tablet design.
I don't know how across the world this is, but I was talking to a UK retailer this week, and they were sort of saying that iPad sales are falling off like anything at the moment. That they really needed to come up with something fairly radically new for it. The Air was a good seller for a few months, but it's really falling away, and nothing like the previous iPads.
I wonder if that's just because everyone who wants one's got one.
Yeah, I think so. And there's no point in upgrading an iPad. Beyond, if you've got an iPad 1, you might want to upgrade it, but anything beyond that you've got something which will work pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, my wife's still using the first gen iPad Mini. It's more than happy with it.
Yeah. So I think that unless they do come up with something radical in the next design, I think there's certainly some talk that Apple may be starting to sales on certain platforms. So yeah, could be interesting. We know all these things come in cycles.
Yeah. I found that the 1520 has done what I thought it would do, and really reduced the need for me to use a 7-inch tablet, so either the Toshiba or the iPad. So a lot of the things you can do on there. There's just a few things that like Word. Word's okay for viewing, but I wouldn't like to type a blog post on on this. But then again, I suppose I think on the iPad Mini is probably a bit on the small side for that. But I think an improvement to the UI and just a bit of refining for the screen size, because I found that some things don't scale, as we mentioned a couple of weeks ago. Some things don't scale so well, some things do, and I think if you just improve those, then maybe that Surface Mini was the Microsoft were right. The Surface Mini doesn't need it because Windows Phone does the job better. I don't know. I don't think it's quite there. I mean, my Surface 2 does everything I want it to do. A mini version would do the same thing, just with a slightly smaller keyboard or something. I don't know, but I don't know what. I'll be interested to see whatever the next device announcement will be, will really give us a good clue to what the strategy is going to be.
Well, the next device announcements are going to be 2 new phones, by the sound of things.
Yeah, and are they going to be Lumias?
They're going to be Lumias, yep. So from what I can see, these are what were the code names Superman and I'm trying to remember what the other one was.
These were sort of mid to low range ones.
Yeah, well, the Superman one is the so-called selfie phone. So this is the one which has got basically the high megapixel front-facing camera as well as a low. So basically, I think they're about 5 megapixels front and back. So I think this will have a heavy sale as a selfie phone, which is a good market, a good marketing ploy now, and it's going to be a fairly low-end phone. I don't quite know where it fits in the numbering system, because originally they were talking about that being the 630. So obviously that's not going to be that. So it could be 730, but then between the 8, 7 and the 8. That's it. It's the Tesla is the code name for the other one, which obviously gets a bit confusing with cars. That one was supposed to be at one stage going to be the 730. So I'm not quite sure how that fits in. But they're talking about that one actually having a pure view camera, which is nice to see that coming down a bit in the range. So from all accounts, it's a thinner, lighter 930, and possibly without wireless charging. Although I suspect they might give that option with a case again, like they have in previous years. And that actually might be a phone I might be interested in because it would have a slightly thinner form factor, so it might not be so awkward in my hands. So that's I think they're both very interesting. Very little details at the moment, but apparently been shown off in internal Microsoft meetings. So
I noticed there was quite an interesting advert. I think it's probably only in the States at the moment, but comparing Apple's Siri against a Lumia 630 or 635, I think it was, with Cortana. I thought it was quite a clever way, basically showing, look, we've got this phone that's only $100 compared to $500, and it does more.
Yeah.
And Cortana, where will I find that?
Yeah, it must be due any day now, surely.
Well, wasn't it last week? Somebody said it'd be 2 weeks, so it should be this week.
It should be then this week. It should be. Well, I wouldn't like to say. Let's say it'll be here before the end of August.
That's more than 2 weeks.
And how disappointing! It's not going to have the voice of Cortana.
Yeah, I don't think it's one of those difficult things, because I think if it had an American accent, they'd get panned for that, and if it doesn't have Jen's voice, the Cortana voice, then they're going to get panned for that. So I think they should have made it an option to have.
I was going to say, surely it's an option.
They could do it like SatNav, can't they, where you choose which voice you want. I do get it that in the UK, probably 99% of owners aren't going to have a clue who Cortana actually is, and you're right, they would be annoyed that it didn't have a British accent. But I think for people like us, it would just be so cool.
I'm sure they'd have the option, won't they?
At the moment, not. But,
no.
But I think they're getting so much feedback on that may change.
Yeah, it'd be good, I think. I mean, like I say, it's a novelty thing, but it's supposed to be the most personal smartphone, so why can't
I have to say, voices are really important. I found that when I was setting up the voice control at home. Until I got the right voice for the feedback, it's how it relates to people, and I think that's really important, getting the right voice.
Yeah. I'd just be thankful just to have it. Because I think even my 10-year-old said, "Oh, is this the phone that's going to have Cortana on it?" I went, "Well, yes, one day."
But you can't have Cortana if you're under a certain age, because we tried on my son's 625, who's got he's a big developer, so he's got the developer preview on there, and we changed the locale to be US, and it wouldn't let it because of the family rules.
Right.
So there is some age restriction on it. I guess it's 13, I would imagine, which is, I think, when you submit to the store, you have to put a 13 rating if you've got social integration. So maybe it's the same thing with that, but it definitely came up when we set up that he couldn't have it, even though he was in the US. We set him in the US. So he might not get it unless you lie about his age.
Yes. Well, at least you can have a Microsoft account. You can't have an Apple ID until you're 13.
Yeah, and I do quite like the way you can add the phones or the accounts to your family account. So so I've got the parent account, and I can see my son's account. So you can do things like prevent them buying in-app purchases and things like that. You can do all that from WindowsPhone.com.
Yeah, the only thing I would like to see is the integration of the web filter. Doesn't seem to apply to the phone.
Right. Yeah, that would have been good. Yeah.
Even more important on a phone than it's anywhere else, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I was quite surprised that didn't filter through, but
I think they could expand that. I think that would be quite a nice, friendly way of doing things. Well, Android, when you had the Android phone, there wasn't really that control. So if I wanted to Find My Phone, I had to know its passwords and things. But Windows Phone seems to work better for that.
Yeah, I think they've always had a fairly family focus on it, which is good.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah. Was there anything else you want to get through then this week?
I did say last week I'd mentioned my adventures with Pebble. So.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So I've actually had a Pebble on trial for about 2 or 3 weeks, and despite the fact I'm only using it with Windows Phone, which does rather limit it, I liked it so much I tried to buy one. And I say try to because I actually had a bit of a disaster with my purchasing of one, and it's a tale of woe which I think people out there ought to know about and be warned about. So I bought one off eBay at a reasonably low price, I'll admit, and plus perhaps I should have been wary of the price. But after I had it for about a week, it developed a fault. So I thought, okay, no problem. They've got a really good returns policy at Pebble, and I thought that's not going to be a problem. So I contacted Pebble and said, yeah, let's see what I can I get sorted out. And they said, send us the evidence, and they sent the evidence, and then I sat back and waited, as you tend to do with Pebble's technical support. It has to be said they're not the quickest in the world. But then 7 days later they came back and said, where did you buy this phone from? This watch from, which had a bit of suspicion. So I said, well, got it on eBay. They said, well, I'm afraid to tell you, it's already been RMA'd, and this is actually the one which should have been destroyed when it was returned. And apparently this is absolutely prevalent on eBay at the moment. People are selling up there because Pebble don't ask for any watches which are sold to outside the US to be returned to them.
Right.
They're all over those. Now, I've noticed a few people are being honest and saying this is a one which is either RMA'd but it seems to be working reasonably well, or it's got this fault, or it's got that fault. But there's definitely a raft of them out there. So buyer beware is all I'm going to say on that. Having said that, it's a really good phone, a really good watch. It is limited at the moment in its interaction with Windows Phone, and that's partly because of the operating system. Some of the changes which seem to be coming in that .1 release do seem to actually work in favour of maybe an official Pebble app coming, and I know they've been talking. So that's something I think we may see not too far down the road, because all the things they put in are all the things that Pebble needs to support it. There's a couple of unofficial apps which actually do allow you to install things like watch traces and things like that. I'm still sort of toying between this and the Gear watches, but what I really like about the Pebble is the fact it's daylight viewable. And we talked about this the other week about watch faces and the fact it's got to be a watch first, and it is so good in daylight. When you've got really good daylight out there, the e-ink's display, because it's an e-ink rather than an e-paper display, just looks so real. It looks like a proper watch face. It doesn't look like you've got an electronic device on at all. And I think that's really good. And the fact you've got your notifications, and it works so well with things like Runkeeper and stuff like that. It's. I mean, I've used it with an iPhone as well, just to try out some of the things. And in that situation, it does work really well. So I'm looking forward to being able to use one with an iPhone, with a Windows Phone as well, if I can find another one at a reasonable price.
Yeah, buyer beware.
Buyer beware.
Yeah. I'm looking. There was a Meta watch I saw at CES, and they were going to send me a review, but it never happened.
Yeah.
I quite like the idea of it, but I think we'll wait to see what Microsoft come out with, if anything.
Yeah,
later.
well, they're still talking about the smart band, which I think will be good. I mean, I've been hearing rumours that they're actually going to work quite closely with Pebble, so and that would be a good thing to do, because Pebble's one of the few things which goes cross-platform. And has a very good developer support in it, and there's a lot of apps out for it, and particularly a lot of phone faces for it. I mean, I love the ink screen, and I think I would definitely be tempted to go that way rather than anything OLED or anything like that, because it's just the battery life. You can get 7 days out of it without charging it, so it feels a lot more natural to have as a watch. You don't have to really worry about it.
Excellent stuff. Right, well, we're running out of time. So, Jason, you're away next week, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes, a holiday. Oh.
if our passports arrive.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll see you back next week.
So, are you going to be? Well, actually, they don't do them in Peterborough anymore. I was going to say you'd be queuing outside the door, but they're probably down in Wales somewhere.
It's in Liverpool.
It's in Liverpool. So, but I got, because we're now into the 7 days. So as long as we can provide flight details, then they'll turn them around quickly. So touch wood.
But they are on strike, so.
Yes, they were on Monday. Yeah.
So we'll see. Hopefully you will. Well, I'm sure you will.
Give us your Twitter then, so we can follow your password.
Yeah. I'm at Database Jace.
Excellent. And Gary, you're going to be here next week, aren't you?
I am, yeah, and at Gary WMA on Twitter, and obviously you can find me at www.fascinatingtech.com as well. See what's going on there, and we're into the competition. Lots of prizes to be given away.
Excellent stuff. Yeah,
and you two qualify. You can still enter.
I'm going to go have a look. Excellent stuff. Well, it was great as ever. So, thanks to everybody that joined in the chat room. You said there was a few viewers on there. I didn't see any comments, but there's other people in the chat room. And we'll be back next week. So, follow us on Twitter for more details. So, we'll see you next week.
Take care.
Cheerio.